Every day, without most people realizing it, the world is quietly changing. Warships sail through contested waters, trade routes are being redrawn, technology is being cut off. And global powers are speaking in the language of rivalry instead of cooperation. News headlines talk about tariffs, military drills, tech bans, and diplomatic warnings, but when you step back and connect the dots, a much bigger question emerges. Are we slowly entering a new Cold War? Not one with walls and nuclear standoffs broadcast on television, but one fought through money, technology, influence, and control. A rivalry where the United States and China are not firing shots at each other, yet are constantly testing limits, preparing for worst-case scenarios, and reshaping the global order in the process. This isn't a distant political issue. It affects what you buy, how much you pay, what technology you use, and how safe the world feels tomorrow. To understand why so many experts, journalists, and world leaders are now using the term New Cold War, we need to look beyond daily headlines and understand the bigger picture. During the original Cold War, the world was divided between two clear sides, with the United States and the Soviet Union competing for global dominance without fighting each other directly. Today, the situation looks different, but the logic is strikingly familiar. China has risen at a speed the world has never seen before, becoming a manufacturing powerhouse, a technological challenger, and a political influence across Asia, Africa, and beyond. For years, the United States supported China's integration into the global economy, believing economic growth would lead to cooperation. Instead, that cooperation has slowly turned into competition, and that competition is now starting to feel like confrontation. Video. We're not asking whether the US and China are enemies, we're asking whether their rivalry is reshaping the world into opposing sides again, and what that means for everyone caught in between. The rivalry between the United States and China did not begin with hostility. It began with hope. For decades, the two countries worked together as China opened its economy to the world. American companies invested billions, factories moved overseas, and global trade exploded. The idea was that economic growth would bring cooperation and stability, and for a time, it did. China rose faster than anyone expected, lifting millions out of poverty and becoming a central part of the global economy. But as China grew stronger, the relationship began to change. Power shifted, influence expanded, and China made it clear it would follow its own path, not the one the West expected. What once looked like partnership slowly turned into rivalry. By the 2010s, the United States stopped seeing China as just a partner and started seeing it as a challenger. The tone changed, trust faded, and a new phase quietly began. The first battlefield of this rivalry was money. Instead of soldiers, tariffs were deployed. The United States accused China of unfair trade, stolen technology, and market control. China pushed back. What followed was a trade war that rippled across the world. Companies were forced to move factories. Supply chains were disrupted. Prices began to rise. Ordinary people felt the effects through higher costs and economic uncertainty. At the same time, both countries began trying to reduce their dependence on each other. The U.S. looked for alternatives to Chinese manufacturing, while China focused on producing more at home. This economic conflict doesn't feel dramatic, but it is constant. It reshapes global trade every day, quietly deciding who grows, who struggles, and who gains power. Technology soon became the center of the struggle. In the modern world, power comes from chips, data, and innovation. The United States moved to block China's access to advanced semiconductors and sensitive technologies. Warning of security risks. Chinese companies faced bans and restrictions across Western countries. China responded by pouring massive resources into its own technology sector, determined to stand on its own. This fight is about much more than gadgets. It's about who controls the future artificial intelligence, digital networks, and the systems that run modern life. Technology is no longer just a tool. It is influence, control, and advantage. And this battle is happening quietly. In factories, research clubs, and pure around the world. Behind all of this, military tension remains the most dangerous element. The focus of that tension is Taiwan. China sees it as part of its territory. The United States sees it as a partner worth protecting. Military drills, naval patrols, and sharp warnings have become more common. Both sides are building alliances and preparing for scenarios they hope to avoid. No one wants a direct war. The consequences would be devastating. Instead, pressure is applied slowly, carefully, and constantly. This is what makes today sit familiar. No formal cladding line. Just rising tension, growing competition, and a world caught between two powerful rivals. And that is why many believe a new Cold War may already be underway. What makes this moment so important is not just the rivalry itself, but how deeply it reaches into everyday life. This is not a Cold War fought behind closed doors or along distant borders. It shapes the prices we pay, the technology we rely on, the jobs that move or disappear, and the sense of security we feel about the future. The competition between the United States and China is no longer just about power at the top. It affects the entire world. Whether countries choose sides or try to stay neutral. The question now is not simply whether a new Cold War is happening, but how it will unfold. Will competition remain economic and technological, or will it eventually turn into something more dangerous? History shows that rivalries between great powers rarely stay contained forever. Yet THS team, the world is more connected than ever, making conflict more costly and cooperation more necessary. For now, the US and China continue to compete without direct war, testing limits while avoiding collapse. How long that balance can hold is uncertain. What is clear is that the decisions made in the coming years will shape global stability for decades. Whether this era becomes a long, constant or turning point toward cooperation, it depends not leaders, but on how the world responds to this growing divide.